Okay, here is the example code that we wrote last time. And you can see here in this method sayHello that we have references to this.person, that's this object here contained in this class, getName. And you'll notice that getName is a method. It's not a data member, it's not a primitive. So how are we getting it? Well, it's actually calling the method and immediately substituting the result of that method in this place. And it's doing the same for getAge. And the way we do that is with something new in Bash++ called a supershell. Now, Bash has, well, in fact, all shells that I know about have subshells. And a subshell works a bit like this. In any shell language, you put a command in parentheses, echo hello. And what that does is it spawns a new shell, and it calls a command inside of it. And what it's really for is to isolate changes to the environment. And I'll give you an example. Let's do this in regular old Bash. And we could say echo var. And you could see ABC like that. And then let's say we have some kind of a function. And this function is going to change the value of var. So let's set var123. And so if we call some function, and then echo var, this is normal Bash. This is not Bash++. You'll see that this says ABC, and then it changes it, and it says 1, 2, 3. There you go. There it is. But if we call that function within a subshell, like this, for example, then you'll see it doesn't change it. Why? Well, because it spawns a new shell, and the change happened in the new shell, and so it didn't affect the environment. That's very useful. But that's not what most of us use it for most of the time. Most of the time when we use a subshell, it's to get the output of a function and store it in a variable. And I'll give you an example of that. So here we're going to set echo hello, and then we say var equals, and we put the dollar sign in the parentheses, some function. You see, and that calls some function in a subshell and puts it in this variable. And then you can see, there it is, hello. But it's still a subshell, so it still can't modify the environment. So let's say instead what it's going to do, that's going to echo hello, and then it's going to set var equals 1, 2, 3, the way that we want it to. Function output var2, variable value, var. And you'll see that it does not actually succeed in changing it. ABC, it didn't set it to 1, 2, 3 like it said it was going to. Well, what if we would like to store the output of this function in a variable, but also allow it to make changes to the environment? Well, that's where Bash++ supershells come in. And the syntax is very simple. You just replace the dollar sign with an @ symbol. And now we have to run it through Bash++. And you can see, there it is. It changed it, 1, 2, 3, and we got the output of the function. Now that's very useful. So if we go back to this code that we had before from the previous example, you can see what's really happening here now when we call this.person.getName is it's the same as doing a supershell, like that. If you call a method in a place where a primitive is expected, it immediately calls a method into supershell and substitutes the result. So here we'll see that we get exactly the same result as before. Hello, Andrew, you're 27 years old. As a matter of fact, in this particular case, because you're not modifying anything, you could use a subshell and it would make no difference. Except for the fact that supershells are much faster than subshells because we don't have to spawn a new shell. And you can see, yeah, even with a subshell it works. But let's give an example where that wouldn't work. Let's say getName, and let's have a variable here. Public number of times getName has been called. That's a very verbose variable name. Let's set it to 0 plus 1. Okay, after we say hello, let's output echo this dot person dot number of times getName has been called. And you'll see it actually doesn't change because we're calling it in a subshell. 0. If we, however, call it in a supershell, we can see it does change. It's now 1, so that's allowed to modify the environment.